Who's rattling bags back there? Everybody in? Good evening, everyone, members of the public and council. Call to order the public hearing for Thursday, October 22nd, 2015 at 6:32. Looking for approval of our agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. I will hereby open the public hearing with the following statement. The public hearing is convened pursuant to Section 890 of the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representations to council respecting matters contained in the following proposed bylaws. Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, Amendment number 146, Miscellaneous Amendments to Bylaw number 1590, 2015. Second item will be Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, Amendment number 148, C2 Zone Text Amendment, 1939 and 1945 Sooke Roads, Bylaw number 1597, 2015. And the third item before us will be Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, Amendment number 147, CD15 Zone Text Amendment for Pacific Landing, Bylaw number 1593, 2015. Every one of you present who believes that your interests are affected by the proposed bylaws shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaws. None of you will be discouraged or prevented from making your views known. However, it is important that you restrict your remarks to the matters contained in the proposed bylaws. When speaking, please commence your remarks clearly by stating your name and address. The function of council at this public hearing is to listen and not to debate the merits of the proposed bylaws. After this public hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. Please be reminded that after the hearing, there is no further opportunity to speak to council about the proposed bylaw. Your opportunity is now. And with that, I will call the public hearing open. And we will, actually, I want, staff has a directive here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the regular meeting held on September 28th, 2015, Council resolved to make it a condition of rezoning that a traffic study be submitted prior to the public hearing. This is in regards to the third item on the agenda for Sooke Road. The traffic study has not yet been completed, and staff will address this further in a forthcoming report to Council. Staff are also working with the applicant to resolve technical impediments to compiling the said traffic study. Any new information germane to the proposed zoning amendment will be made available to the public in advance of a second public hearing held if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will be proceeding with item number 3, but as staff said, there will be further information coming in the future. So for item number 3.1, Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, Amendment number 146, Miscellaneous Amendments, Bylaw number 1590, 2015. Do we have any speakers?
Catherine Robertson, 395 Farview, and I would just like to bring your attention to point E on page 5 and points K, L, M, and N on page 6. How can we discriminate against somebody who is a single person who buys a home and say you're an only child, you buy a home, you rent your rooms out to 5 other people that you're not related to? What's the difference between that and someone owning a dwelling that has 8 people related? So why are we discriminating, saying not exceeding 4 persons in total, not related, that aren't related? I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned it's discrimination against people who aren't coming from a large family I know people in my neighborhood that have large families, 8 people. They're all related. A lot of them drive. What's the difference between that and 5 people in a 5-bedroom house that are unrelated? So I think that's discrimination, and I think that the wording is, you can't say that someone can't have more than 5 or 4 people unrelated in a house. Thank you.
Any further speakers to this particular item?
John Duncan, 3341 Roverlack Road, for you. I'm not sure if I'm speaking to the bylaw because I came up to talk to the city and I couldn't get any answers, so I'm going to give it a shot, and if I'm speaking off the subject, my apology. I had a few questions about the proposal down at Pacific Landing, and Planning Department couldn't answer
Okay,
my
Mr.
question.
Duncan, can we would like to hear you when we get to the item at Pacific Landing.
Oh, I
Right
thought
now,
we-
we're
my
simply
apologies.
talking about item 1.
Okay, I forgot my hearing aid. My apologies.
That's okay. We just have to hold you back for a little bit, that's all. Is there anyone else to speak to item number 1? And for a final time, anyone to speak on item number 1? We will then move on, folks, to item number 2, which is 3.2 Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151/1989, amendment number 148, C2 zone text amendment for 1939 and 1945 Sooke Road. Any persons to speak on this one? Actually, perhaps, Ms. Johnson, before we get you underway, I know the developer is here and I'm seeing up on the board a little something. Would you like to make your comments now or when we see what they might have to show us?
I think I'd like to make my comments now.
Absolutely.
Gail Johnston, 245 Ships View Place. I'm here tonight to oppose item 3.2, Land Use Bylaw 151, amendment number 148, to allow boarding school as a permitted use for the property zoned C2 at 1939 and 1945 Sooke Road. I am not opposed to a school, university, or even this Dwight School of Canada. I am opposed to having a private for-profit school buying a large piece of Colwood's commercial property and not paying any taxes. I do understand that new provincial legislation will require total exemption, but this is not yet enacted, so I have been in touch with Maureen Carey-Aganis. This is not right. How and why are we letting this happen? Do you know that one international student with full-time private boarding will pay $54,000 for 1 year? And if he needs ESL support, you can add another $5,000. And of course, the registration fee is only $2,500 for international records. That's $61,500 for 1 year times 150 students. You do the math. This development would not only decrease the taxable C2 land in Colwood, but ultimately raise the taxes for all Colwood taxpayers, commercial and residential. That includes each and every one of you too. This council has already given the new hotel a free ride at our expense for 10 years. That hotel would have been built anyway, and you should have done better for the Colwood tax coffers. This proposed private for-profit school will never hand over enough payment in lieu of taxes to replace what we lose from our tax base. There is nothing at all to prevent this school from having its own agreements for using playing fields and a gym with Royal Roads University, which, as you know, is directly adjoining this property. As you are all aware, Royal Roads University does not pay taxes to Colwood either. This could be a windfall for Royal Roads University, not for West Shore Parks and Rec, as Councillor Martin hoped. I urge you to have a strong, legally binding payment in lieu of taxes agreement with built-in increases to make up for the tax losses. This must be done before you even consider changing bylaws or zoning for this project. If you keep passing up and giving a free hand to these businesses and developers at the expense of your own taxpayers, you will eventually make Colwood unaffordable for the rest of us. We will be left with all our available space built out and up without the amenities the tax dollars and developers should have paid for. I know this community is struggling financially, as are the taxpayers who are getting increases from all the utilities and various levels of government who are downloading on us. But please, let's put our thinking caps on and come up with a more fiscally responsible arrangement for Colwood before proceeding with support for this development. Thank you.
Some of you have seen the presentation before in the plan of use, but I'm not sure if you have the Dwight folders. I've got some PowerPoint for notes if you'd like.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
I'm Jeff Townsend. I represent Dwight.
Sorry, yeah, could you pull the mic up?
Yeah,
People are
yes.
just having a
Hello.
hard time hearing it, sounds like.
Oh, hold on.
Yes,
Sorry.
way up.
Hello. Is that better? Okay, I'm Jeff Townsend. I represent Dwight School for the development in the West Shore. Actually don't know how to click the thing. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I can be taught.
Or pick it up and hold it, or if it makes it easier
Maybe that.
for you.
Okay, hello. Is that even better? Everybody good? Okay, let's see if I can operate all the equipment. Jeff Townsend, I represent, in here we have our founder, Jerry Salvador, with us to help me with any questions if there are any. And Dan Spinner and I have been working on this project now for a year and a half. Let's see. Really? There we go. So we were able to acquire these two pieces of property, 1945 and 1939 Sooke Road, for the purpose of moving a presence of Dwight School into Colwood. The reason is we've hit a glass ceiling on local students, and this would allow us to grow our school. We're a nonprofit that focus on international baccalaureate principles, and right now our competitors for international baccalaureate are Glen Lyon and St. Margaret's in town, and we think that we're going to retain or recapture those people back into Colwood. Our project consists of two major portions, 30,000 square feet of classroom space and assembly space, including a cafeteria, and 30,000 square feet of dorms that'll house 150 international students and 150 local students. We're trying to open this in September of 2017. Right now we have some real concept designs, and we have asked at the Planning Use Committee language that allows us to design up to 10 stories. But as we move forward with the design, we might go into two separate 5-story buildings. The reason for that is we're looking at gender separations for our students. We made an application here for C2 zoning to allow private schools to be part of that. C2 zoning now allows, as you know, assembly and apartments, so it's not that great a leap to go into dorms and public use for educational purposes. We've done environmental studies that help the riparian area regulations setbacks be identified, and now that that's complete, we're going to be able to really finish the concept design. Here it says we're concerned about the lengthy process because we're trying to open in the fall of 2017, and so anyway, I just make that statement. There's all sorts of things to do. We are currently negotiating a long-term lease with the West Shore Parks to pick up their dead inventory. This location was important to us because we can use the existing fields at Wantafuca West Shore, and while we need the fields in the day, right now they're used heavily in the evenings and weekends. That's exactly when we don't need it. So I think there'll be a real benefit for the West Shore Parks having us there. The creek is always a concern, but we intend to use that as an educational tool and leave it in its present state. Trees, we've tagged all the trees, and we're going to keep as many as we can. And right now, it doesn't look like we'll have to take too many out, so we're trying to keep that essence. The overall market is right now, as I mentioned, 150 international students. Right now, up at Dwight School, we have 97, and our marketing keeps cycling every year, and we're going to bring those 97 into Colwood, and the local students I mentioned will probably intercept the ones going now to Victoria Hope Bay, but that's not proven yet. Presently in the whole area of West Shore, there's 4,000 high school students, and they range 12 to 18, and all we need for their local students is 150. That's about 3% of the existing. So as the school population grows, we're really not affecting the public school population much, if at all. Our timeline is we need to finalize our concept by December 1st. We're working with our staff. We've hired an architect. And we're aiming for a building permit application March 1st. So we're going to reverse for our development permit following somewhere between those two dates. We envision construction starting July 1st with a September 1st, 2017 opening. Looking ahead, this project will create 50 to 75 full-time jobs for the area, and there'll be significant spin-offs like the West Shore and anytime you get a high-paying job in here, the instructors will move here and become part of the community. We're going to have a 400-person assembly hall that'll double use as a cafeteria, and we'll make that assembly hall available to the community when we're not using it. So it'll have a community effect there. Thank you. I'm Jeff. Dan's sitting there, and Jerry's sitting with us as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions from members in the audience for this particular item?
Catherine Robertson, 395 Farview. I would just like council to consider before they even decide on this school that the traffic study that has not been conducted be taken into consideration, being that the Colwood strip there is the only way in and out for everybody going from Sooke to Victoria. Please take that into consideration before putting a school on the busy street there, going in and out with not enough parking. Thank you.
Doug McDougall, 288 Portsmouth Drive. I'll be brief. Just to follow on what Gail said about taxes, I didn't hear in Jeff's, Mr. Townsend's presentation about taxes. And I'm just curious as to what we're losing mainly by having this as opposed to something like Ridley was going to develop, which would be taxed, and the people living in it would be taxed. That, I think, is an important question to ask. Or, if they're not going to pay taxes, how the grant in lieu of taxes is going to be carried on with. That's my only concern. Thank
you. On the tax issue, that's something that came up that we really didn't see it coming. What happened was the provincial legislation deemed all private schools to be tax exempt. And although there was legislation there that had a certain degree of that, what they meant to do is keep all private schools at a level playing field to compete with each other. And of course, we didn't see this coming, as that would show up as a negative to the community. It's not our intent to have a negative community. So all I can say today is we've talked to staff, and we're going to enter into negotiations on what that balance point might be. And but it did take us by surprise, and I understand your point completely. Don't have an answer, but we do pledge to negotiate with the staff to figure it out. Of course, but that's pretty fresh to us, the whole reaction, because we didn't request it. It just came in as a legislation. Well, yeah, well, the obvious thing is, if our competition is other private schools, they can lower their tuition because they have this benefit. In this particular case, it might not be a benefit to us. So I'm not sure what the exact answer is, but all I can say is we're talking to the staff.
And I will affirm that, in fact, those negotiations and those discussions are presently ongoing, because as well as to these folks, we were not apprised of changes in the legislation that had come forward, and a previous council has tried to tax our public school system and failed. So it is something we are looking at, finding that balance point.
Yeah, the announcement actually came September 29th. So in the middle of all of this. Well, of course. I will say something about the parking as well. Of course, parking has to be figured out. But what we don't want to do is go down a lengthy $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 design process, only to discover that the community doesn't really want us to move into here. So what we're doing is on the taxation, or on the parking, we would like not to have a left-hand turn there because of the obvious traffic. But I can say we need to figure that out. That's not a good place for that. Well, we have some ideas, and we'll see how it goes. But I think we can solve it.
Is there anyone else from the audience that has any comments to be made on this particular item?
52.
My name's Jerry Salvador, and I'm the head of school and founder of Dwight. And I just want to tell you why I founded Dwight, why I'm one of the founders. I was at Pearson College for 33 years. I think you're familiar with Pearson. It's been a school that's highly involved with the community. My area of expertise was actually in the area of service and service learning and getting students to be involved. And during all those years, I had many people from Langford and Colwood ask me, how can I get my son or daughter into Pearson or a Pearson type of education? And it's difficult, to apply. Maybe one person from Victoria gets to go every several years. And I thought that it made sense to have something in the same spirit in this area. And I must say that I was building this for selfish reasons, but not to make money. Nobody makes money with private schools. I'm sorry, it's not a money maker. In fact, this is a nonprofit school. Why I did it is because I have 6 grandchildren. And how am I going to get them? I can't get them into the type of education I'd like, which would be something like Pearson College, where people are committed to internationalism. They're committed to developing a community, to being part of it, to supplying service. Our students, you may not realize that they're up in Shawnigan, and they come down here and do at this social needs dance at the rec center. They go and do service there. Why? Because I was contacted and asked, could you help us out? We don't have enough students who come in and dance every week with the people with disabilities. And we said, of course we will. And we've been doing that now for 7 years. When I did service, I've done it at the Priory with our students. We've done it all over the community. And that's what we're trying to build, is a school that's integrated into the community, that is really involved with international mindedness, which I think is really important, and giving a world vision to students. This is part of our platform. This is what we're always working on. And what I know from schools, when they go into a community, they bring people into the community. They build it up. It attracts people to come here. Instead of migrating, people go and move towards schools. So this is an asset. This is going to build a much better place. And our philosophy is, one of our pillars is community. That's one of the key things that we believe in. So, we're here, and you think it doesn't make a difference, but these taxes, it is, something we're competing against other schools with a lot bigger funds that we have to compete against. So, we just want to be on an equal playing field. We have around 10%. We don't have a foundation. We haven't been around long enough to have rich foundations and rich people to support us. I know eventually our graduates will support us, but it takes a while to do that. But despite that, we have at least 10% of our students are on full scholarship. It's a huge number. We put whatever we can. We have people from the ministry coming and say, this student is at risk at home. Will you take them? And we take them and we give a full scholarship. This is when we don't have the rich donors to support us. If you want, come and meet some of our students, and they'll tell you how we've changed their lives. But the reason for doing this, again, one was I started out trying to think of how am I going to get the type of education I want for my grandchildren. And second is, how are we going to make a better community? And how are we going to do it? That's the reality. That's what's behind this. Not as we're being portrayed as, greedy and trying to make a whole bunch of money. That's not the reality of independent schools, or at least that's not our reality. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine Robertson. I would just like to address you. I find your school admirable, the founding and everything, the philosophy. However, I wish that was the philosophy in our public school system, and I would suggest that you had directed your energies towards all the children, not just your own grandchildren. So I suggest that this school not be allowed to be the rezoning for the school, not on the principle of the school itself, on the principle of the traffic, on the principle of that piece of property. It's not the right fit for that zone. I would say find another place that's better, but I would like you to commit to helping the children in the community as a whole, not the 150 that pays $63,000 a year and the 150 that you might give one or two scholarships to, and think of all the children in the world, not just your grandchildren.
Are there any other members of the public to speak on this particular item? Last call for this item number 3.2. Comments from the public? Seeing none, we shall move on to item number 3.3, Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, Amendment number 147, CD 15 Zone Text Amendment, Pacific Landing, Bylaw number 1593.
Madam Mayor, if I may. I will be excusing myself from the meeting as I have a potential perceived conflict of interest in this case. My wife has a landscaping contract with Pacific Landing, so I will be excusing myself from any discussion and voting on this issue.
Randy Royer, 3221 Heather Bell Road. Mayor, councilors, city staff, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for addressing this issue this evening. It is a textual amendment to zoning of 2009. We are pleased to present what we think is a good conclusion. We believe that we have approached this project very thoughtfully and very carefully, and we think that this textual amendment addresses that, and quite frankly, it takes a lot of risk away from the city, our neighbors, and ourselves. It allows us to do a phasing development. It allows us to phase in the payments to the city on one hand. We believe that what that does is it gives everyone a higher surety that it will be a successful project. That a successful project will enhance the value of the lands in the neighborhood and enhance the land values and the home values of the neighbors. So we think that's important. As part and parcel of this, we've actually increased the gross amount that the project will be paying to the city for DCCs, and that's what, as I understand it, is what we were going to be talking about tonight. We're here if there's any questions, Your Worship. I guess you'll look to us to answer them.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any members of the public?
Joe Richardson, 409 Carson Road. This is a question that, well, it relates to this, but not to this specifically. As quite a few people know, well, I should apologize first if I missed something along the way, that a meeting or something I should have been to, and I wouldn't be standing here now. That's I apologize. As quite a few people know, we have a group at the LC that monitors the fish and all those creeks coming into Esquimalt Lagoon, including Bee Creek, which runs through the property. We've been doing it for years, so we pretty well know what's there. And if we had to go some time without doing it, it probably wouldn't be that big a deal. But my question is will we still have access? We have access to the creek, of course, we have to have, but will we have access to the property in the sense if there's construction and the bridge is being replaced and what have you? And that's it. I'd just like to know, that's all. And as I say, if I missed something, and I should know, sorry.
Randy, if it's a quick answer on that one, I'm not sure.
Yes. There will be a short time when we're putting in the utilities that'll be pedestrian access only. The essence of the project is that it's open to the public.
Don Duncan, 3341 Roberlac Road. These gentlemen probably can answer my questions. I came up to City Hall to speak to the planner and the engineers, and they couldn't answer my question. I, like Joe, are concerned and look at the environmental impact of the subdivision. It's a very low water table, and I've alluded many times previous, I have worked with the CRD with sewage and pumping stations, and my questions are all generated basically around the fish. I asked the engineering department, will they have a lift station? Will it be, and the answer was yes. I asked to see the plans, they didn't have the plans, or they weren't available. My questions was, is it a duplex station? In other words, 2 pumps? They couldn't answer that question. I said, is there going to be a diesel backup? Where is the overflow situation going to go when 1 pump or 2 pumps fail, which if there isn't a diesel backup is a definite possibility. They couldn't answer that question. I asked if the main was going to go over the creek or under the creek. They couldn't answer that question. My question to the council is, if planning and engineering can't answer the questions, how can we possibly approve a subdivision when we don't know all the answers? Now, I have confidence the developer will do the best they can. The other thing I'm concerned about, because I've been in the business for a lot of years, is developers have a tendency, I apologize if you guys don't fit in the thing, the tendency to put in as cheap and as simple pieces of equipment as they possibly can. They guarantee to operate and maintain for 10 years. Then it gets turned over to the city when they say, oh, we can't do it anymore. And 9 times out of 10, the CRD got stuck with a piece of garbage, and the taxpayers all of a sudden had to pay for maintaining and operating and upgrading the facilities. I implore council, when you look at this, to get engineering to really hard look at it. Think about the long term, not just 10 years. Think about down the road. Where, if they have a spill, where is it going to go? How are they going to approach the creek? Are they going to go over it or under it? Engineering said the discharge system would go up and then join into, got it written down here somewhere. Anyway, into the main. The mains, with all this development that Colwood is bringing, high density, with everything else, I couldn't get the answer from the CRD today. What is the capacity, and are we approaching the capacity? I know Colwood is looking at our own system, but that's another consideration that we have to look at. Until we get our own system, is the existing infrastructure going to carry all this development in the meantime? So I implore council to look ahead, long term, not short term. So that's basically my questions and my wishes for the council. Thank you very much.
Any further, is there any answers that you can come up with,
Yes.
Ms. Royer?
If I, just a quick list, there's no subdivision on the property. There won't be this, I mean, specifically this issue tonight is just a textual amendment to the zoning, but there will be no subdivision. So that's the first thing off the list, on first point. And we will never subdivide the property.
Oh, it's the buildings. He's talking about the buildings, your little village.
Yeah, the little village.
Phase 1.
Yeah, so it'll never be subdivided. So the point, let me make the point. The point is that we will always own and operate that system. And so the pump station will be on our property and will always be responsible for it. So it doesn't get turned over to the community. So because we're not subdividing it, does that make sense to you? Makes sense. Okay, so that's the first point. That there is no subdivision of the property. Second point is that we are going up Heatherbell Road with the pump station that goes into at Portsmouth. The plans are available, and I would suggest just come down to the site and you can take a look at the plans, and we have all the answers there. And my belief is that we are going over the creek, under the bridge, and I believe that there are 2 pumps. There's a backup pump and the main pump, and I don't have the answer on the spillage, how there's a safety procedure there. But I know that we are adhering to all the, there's requirements and building code stuff that you have to follow. So I believe that that's all being followed. But certainly pop down to the site. You can see this gentleman. His name's Jordan.
Is DOE seen the plans? Are they happy with your
DOE? Yeah. Yes, I believe they have. But again, Dale and Jordan will have those specific answers for you. And the city is part of the process. I'll turn it over to the...
If you could come to the mic, please, because we can't hear you then, and the purpose is for us to know what your folks are thinking.
Oh, okay. But you're supposed to tell them, I guess. Anyway, Doug McDougall, 288 Portsmouth Drive. I just heard Randy say something about Portsmouth Drive and sewers. That's probably not going to go down too well with some people on Portsmouth Drive. Are they hooking into our system, or are they putting your own system in? How is that? What's happening there? Yeah, no, okay. That's it.
Yeah, so it's the corner, the septic, the community system comes to Portsmouth and Heatherbell Road. And so we will be connecting to the community system at that point in time. So that my understanding is that it goes from there down Portsmouth, and so that we're just connecting into the community system there. So we're not affecting anyone in the area.
Catherine Robertson. I would just like to recommend that the amount of contributions per unit dwelling for replacing or improvements to the Colwood Bridge are not acceptable. That bridge is already, I went to an LC meeting. It was quite unfortunate that no one from City of Colwood attended the meeting, which they're supposed to give an update on developments so that we know what's going on so we can give recommendations, but nobody came. Anyhow, the Colwood Peninsula is washing away every day as we speak. So the fact that they're only going to contribute such a little amount is not acceptable. It's not acceptable for the commuters. It's not acceptable for Colwood, and it shouldn't be acceptable for you.
Any further comments from members of the public? And a final time. Any further comments or inquiries from the public? Seeing none, let me get to my close. Then I will hereby call the public hearing that addressed these three issues closed for this evening. Thank you very much, folks, for coming. Looking for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Hold by. There's cake coming.
I'm sorry? There's cake?
Yeah.
I want to grab Doug. Just explain that to him quick.
Yeah, if you want to catch him and just have a quick chat.